Let's roll on and let's get you into that first control room facility tour that we talked about. We're taking you to Philadelphia to good friends of SVG, Kevin Copp, who's their associate AD of video production, and Kevin Hession. He's their director of video production and a broadcast engineer, both of them working at the Liacouras Center at their brand new, beautiful control room facility. Good to see you guys sharing a Zoom window. I love it. Thank you so much for being
into the Kevin's thing.
Yeah. You should just worn like one two-headed sweater and just shown up together. Just a double-headed turtleneck sweater. Well, thank you so much for being here and agreeing to do this with us. We see that you are in the control room facility now. We, of course, want to be able to take people through and see what you guys have built and what you have started to use. This is a control room that opened this academic year amidst everything else that was going on. So kudos to you on that. Again, the Q&A function is open to those of you in the audience. The big part of this tour is for you to be able to ask any question, big or small. If it's a specific piece of gear, shoot it in there. If it's a general philosophy question, shoot it in there. But we'll bring the Kevin's back in just a moment. But first, Kevin, let's have you first give us a tour of the new control room that you guys have at the Liacouras Center. Let's take a look.
Welcome to Temple University and the Liacouras Center. I wanted to start by just walking you through this control room facility. Just opened this past year. We're really excited about it. We've got a half year under our belts, and of course, like so many of you, are looking forward to our first, knock on wood, post-COVID year starting this coming August. But to take it back and kind of give you the history of how this room came to be, why it's here, and why we did some of the things we did, I'll give you a little bit of the overview. Going back to the spring of 2019, the American Athletic Conference and ESPN signed a 12-year rights agreement, and as part of that, a lot of the production, especially for Olympic sports, but also for men's and women's basketball, came to the schools themselves for the ESPN Plus platform. And so basically from that point forward, Temple went about actually doing an interesting thing, which is they split the existing video department into two. And we now have a video department that is solely focused on live production, with, of course, the overwhelming majority of that being production specifically for ESPN Plus. And so I was fortunate enough to come back here to Temple for my second tour of duty and to get to lead that department. We have 4 full-time folks working with us, as well as some undergraduate student interns and then professional freelancers on game days. So we're sitting here in Control Room A within the Liacouras Center, which is our men's basketball arena. Behind that wall, over my right shoulder, your left, is our Control Room B, which is a work-in-progress facility that we'll talk some more about as we go on. But we have 3 venues here on campus that our productions originate from. We're here in the Liacouras Center, which is our men's basketball-specific arena. Right next door to us, across Montgomery Avenue, is McGonigal Hall, and that holds women's basketball, as well as women's gymnastics and women's volleyball. Then 3 to 4 blocks south down Broad Street, right through the center of North Philadelphia, is the Temple Sports Complex. That's our field complex where we have men's and women's soccer, field hockey, and women's lacrosse. And so the big challenge for us as we decided how we were going to go about tackling this ESPN Plus production project was, what do we do about the Temple Sports Complex? Because, as I said, it's 4 blocks south on Broad Street. There is no fiber connectivity between this building and that complex, and there is no way that we are digging a trench through 4 blocks of Philadelphia's major artery to get there. And so as we began the RFP process and the bid process and looked at control room integrators, that was really the big thing, was what is the plan going to be to service all of these venues? And so we were very fortunate to partner with Alpha Video on this project. They came in with a vision for how all of these venues were going to work together. And so basically, here within Liacouras Center, we're fibered internally. We're fibered next door to McGonigal Hall, and so that's a very seamless production process. And we are using something called Sienna NDI Cloud technology, which allows us to harness some of the campus Ethernet network connections that we have available to us down at the Temple Sports Complex. It shoots that signal into the cloud, it takes it out and spits it out back here, and so we're able to do those productions semi-remotely, but all from a centralized control room. So we're not rolling out fly packs down Broad Street, we don't have a mobile unit or a truck. We are able to really use this as a centralized facility, even though we haven't been able to go the traditional route with having all of our outlying venues fibered. So that's kind of the background and how we got here. I'll give you a little bit on the timing of how this came together because needless to say, building a control room in COVID was interesting, and then we'll get into some of the tech as well. So from a timing standpoint, we signed our agreement with Alpha Video at the beginning of March 2020. As you will well know, a couple weeks later, things really came to a standstill. In particular, here at Temple University, the Liacouras Center was turned into a FEMA field hospital. So it wasn't just a matter of not being able to come to work each day. We could not bring contractors into the building for months and months. And so the walls that you see here were not built. This is basically a carve out from what was an existing storage room within the Liacouras Center. We have about 680 square feet here between these two control rooms. So we needed to wait to get walls built. We needed to wait, obviously, to have equipment come in and be commissioned and be tested. So we were really in an indefinite standstill for a number of months. The first date that we were able to get contractors on site to begin this process of getting the wiring, the walls, and all of the equipment in was September 13th, 2020. It was a full-on sprint to get this complete. It was up and running by December 13th of 2020. We got it done in a little bit under 2 months, and it was ready for our first ESPN Plus men's basketball broadcast, which was Temple versus NJIT right here in the Liacouras Center on December 19th of 2020. So we're really happy about where it landed. I mean, you'll notice there's cinder block on the walls. The walls are unpainted drywall. It is a pretty Spartan environment in here. You know, the budget being what it is, we really had to focus on the essentials. And for us, that was basically making sure that every single home event for an AAC team is going to meet ESPN's minimum standards for ESPN Plus production, and that we're not in a position to pick and choose between our sports. If two events are happening simultaneously, we get two events on the air simultaneously. And so while that control room B still has a little bit of a ways to go, we're super happy with the space in here, and we're really excited to keep building as the years go on. So before we wrap up the tour and take your questions, let's dig in on some of the tech here within the control room. Within Control Room A, it's a full ROS video-based workflow, and that begins with the Ultrix 5RU router, 144 in, 144 out, with the ability to embed or de-embed every output. We have a 2ME carbonite switcher. We have an 8-channel Abacus mirror replay system. And we have two separate expression units, a 3-channel and a 1-channel. Both of those were provided to us and to each of our conference schools across the American Athletic Conference by the conference office itself. So that we did not have to provide. Those came to us, and we are certainly very grateful for it. So as I said, we are totally fibered within this building. That's the Liacouras Center in McGonigal Hall next door. So we have about 680 square feet of space in this room, but there's also outlying production areas elsewhere. We stole a corner of our training room down at the Temple Sports Complex, and that is where we keep our CCUs and our Dante interface. That is, again, using the Sienna NDI Cloud technology to send all of that from the training room at the Temple Sports Complex, which services both fields on site, gets it back here to the Liacouras Center where those games are produced. So within our what we call our Control Room A here in the Liacouras Center, we also have a separate booth just for audio. All of our audio is managed through our Dante domain with the ability to convert analog signals to Dante as well. So ultimately, this Control Room A is set up for an AP, producer, TD, director, graphics assist, and replay operator. And the Control Room B is a much smaller single bench. Again, that only gets used when there are basically two athletic events competing against each other. So as I said, you know, we have half a year under our belts in this room. We're really looking forward to getting into it in the fall of 2021 with a normal schedule. But this would not have been possible without folks here at Temple, our partners in Alpha Video, the folks at the American Athletic Conference, having a vision for all of this and really going about doing things the right way. And so we are super grateful to them. And of course, now happy to take any of your questions and bring in Kevin as well to talk some more about this room and productions here at Temple.
Very cool, Kevin. Appreciate you guys putting that together and welcoming them back onto the show. Beautiful facility. I kind of liked how you described it as a little Spartan, but it's certainly getting the job done. You got some fantastic gear in there. Real quickly, just to take out a couple of general questions that maybe I missed. You might have said it, and I apologize. You talked about the different facilities that are connected, but when it comes to serving all the different programs, how many live sports can you cover out of this control room right now, realistically? And not at the same time. I just mean generally.
Right. So, I mean, as we said, kind of the genesis of all of this was the relationship between the American Athletic Conference and ESPN. And so the AAC sports that we produce in the fall, you've got men's and women's soccer, you've got women's volleyball, and then into the winter, men's and women's basketball, and in the spring, women's lacrosse. Now, for us, that's a smaller profile than most of the other schools in our conference. Most schools in the American have baseball and softball. We don't. And so while in some ways that's nice, it makes our spring a little bit lighter than some of our colleagues. It does kind of a funky thing with the number of events that we're required to cover each year. We really have no wiggle room, right? We can't say, okay, we're going to pick and choose here and there in order to kind of do our part and meet the overall contract minimums. We basically knew going into this, okay, we have fewer sports, but we're going to produce them all. And along with that, we have some non-American Athletic Conference sports that we are producing out of here, field hockey in the fall, women's gymnastics in the winter, and we're looking at how to expand it as we go on. We're talking about fencing, which we do cover live here, but have not integrated it into the control room as of yet. And then, kind of talking about, okay, what's next out there? Is it, men's crew or women's rowing, which are nearby at the Schuylkill? Is it men's and women's tennis, which are on campus here, but in a facility that has no connectivity? So that's kind of the 3 or 4 year question down the road.
Sure. And for Kevin Hession, Kevin, you came over to Temple from Brown in the fall of 19, correct?
Yes.
And this control room was a bit of the impetus for that. So for you to have the opportunity to, build this from scratch, what were some of the big goals that you had, be them, gear, connectivity, just kinds of content you could create, whatever it may be? What were some things that you were really excited to accomplish? And in the timeline of facing all the different COVID roadblocks that you faced, could you say how close did it look to what you wanted kind of from the beginning?
Yeah. For the first part of your question, I was extremely excited when I got the call from Kevin to, start this sort of from scratch, like you said. I've never worked full-time in a dedicated production facility. At Brown, we were able to, produce events, but, like any small mid-tier school, you face challenges with space. Being able to sort of custom fit this space to what we needed it to do was just a great opportunity. And the second part of your question, I'm sorry, I actually forgot the second part of your question.
That's fine. I was rambling a little bit. When the vision that you guys had in the beginning, despite all the roadblocks that you faced, how close did you get to what you had originally, kind of hoped for when you first started drawing this thing up?
Yeah, I think we were spot on. Alpha Video came and walked through all of our facilities multiple times with us. We had weekly meetings just about where do we want things laid out specifically, we're down to where do we want to blast a hole through the cinder block to put a door. And they were just awesome partners. They've been doing this for so many different athletic departments and other professional sports teams. And we were really excited, for the opportunity to partner with them. And I think what we were looking to get out of this room and what they designed for this room really just came together and was spot on.
Yeah, okay. Right. I hadn't thought about it until your question, but it is shockingly similar to the original. We had that first meeting, I think, like I said in the video, right about a week and a half before COVID hit. Right. Thank goodness we were able to actually still get them on a plane and get them on campus and really walk the venues and see it. I think the only thing, the audio room, which is right here over my right shoulder, on this side of the screen, I think we had to slide that back because of blasting the door in the wall, which we thought we might have the door position elsewhere. If that's the biggest thing that changed after COVID and after all was said and done, that's pretty good. Now the timeline got super jacked up, but actually what the room looks like, yeah, we're pretty lucky in that respect.
So one of the questions coming in from the audience, and it's coming from a more of a smaller school. And correct me if I'm wrong, it's the first time either of you have been involved in a project like this, where you've been able to build a centralized control room. So I guess the kind of the question is, and obviously it's different on every campus, but where do you start? Was it finding the space and being like, all right, this is the puzzle piece that we have to work within? Is it knowing, all right, we're going to be working off of this router, or we got to get this switcher? How do you possibly start with that blank notebook sitting in front of you?
Yeah, I mean, so before the space itself, I mean, the one thing, like I said, that did kind of inform the overall goal was, okay, we know how many sports there are. We know that we're going to have to cover 2 simultaneously. There's no way to get around that. But we want our men's and our women's basketball productions, which are going to be kind of the centerpiece, productions across the conference as part of this deal. We would like those to someday be able to be of linear quality, right? If there is an opportunity perhaps down the road to produce one of those games for ESPNU, we want to make sure that the control room A side is robust enough to do that. So that was kind of the starting point. From there, yeah, it really was okay. And on an urban campus like Temple's is in the heart of North Philadelphia, there's no green space that isn't being used. So
right.
It's where can we find something, within our existing space. Once we were able to kind of, carve out, like I said, it's a 30 by 24 block out of a larger storage room here for some of their, concerts and things like that they do. So, okay, we've got 680 square feet. We've got, the different venues that we know we need to connect in some form or fashion. How do we do it? But we really left that part of the process open. And so, the way we structured the RFP was really a design build, which was, okay, come in here, take a look at it, and you tell us what the solution is. Because again, like I said, there's no fiber getting down to TSC. So that's our perfect world scenario, is you'd have fiber down there and it's kind of a straightforward centralized control room model. Absent that, what do we do? And we were, brought a lot of different great ideas. But again, this was the one that we really ended up landing on. But that was big for us. I know, Kevin is the tech guy and knows how this room works inside and out. I know what my limitations are, and I know that the people that do this, for a living are going to be much smarter at coming up with a solution than I'm going to be. So, hey, bring that to us, and we'll evaluate them. And I think we really ended up in the right spot.
Yeah, and along those lines, the other thing we really needed to look at was, working with our IT department. The fiber that we're using to get across the street to McGonigal Hall is all rented from campus IT. We're using 24 strands of single mode running under that street, which, there was nothing in this project to run any extra fiber underneath or, anything down to TSC, like we said before. So, we were trying to figure out along with where can they actually put us, where can we get the best connectivity possible, and sort of work backwards from there.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the questions that we're getting in relation to that, it was the relationship with the IT department, but Brad from Delaware was also asking, at that field complex, are you dealing with any latency with the cameras? And if so, what are you doing in order to combat that? I don't know, Kevin, getting all the feeds and everything you want from that facility, any challenges that you have to overcome?
Yeah, there's definitely latency issues when you're using camera feeds that are going up to the cloud and then coming back down. That is not on our actual campus Ethernet. It's actually a leased network from Comcast, which is why we can't just shoot it back here and it's, switcher to switcher and we're good to go. So there's definitely some latency issues. So, we try to just tell our camera operators, do the best that we possibly can. It's about a 1 second delay from when the actual play happens or the camera move happens to when it gets back onto our multi-viewer. So it was a little bit touch and go to start because we're telling camera operators what to get, and it's a little bit of a delay. But I think we've been using the same roster of camera operators and students that they sort of got into a groove with sort of how we were doing it. And it's just more a feel for it. There's no real way to get around it other than just adapt. So
right. Lucas from Texas State asks, and I know the answer to this one because I have asked you it. He said, do you do any video board shows out of this? And you do not, right? This is exclusively for ESPN Plus production or other live game production that you might do.
Yeah, the short answer to that is yes. So actually, as we're sitting here, we're in the basement level of the Liacouras Center. Up on concourse level, a floor above us was an existing video board control room, and we basically didn't touch that. Kevin can get into. There is some connectivity and some tie lines between the two.
Okay.
So we are now exploring. Okay, how do we share resources so that we're not, double staffing a full ESPN Plus, control room show and a full board show. We'd love to be able to do that. Money is what money is. And so how do we find ways to combine in the same way that at the Temple Sports Complex, we're sending a clean program feed down there, which then gets layered onto with your, in-game animations and your headshots and, your additional video content. But we are providing the backbone for a lot of the video board shows out of this room. But in terms of a true, we're not cutting a video board show inside this facility, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Yeah. And it's funny that Matt in the audience asks this question because we kind of joked about it when we were rehearsing. The noise level's okay, even though you got the rack room there in the control room with you. Were you worried about that? It seems like it's fine. I can't hear him, but so. I figured you would be screaming at the top of your lungs right now, but it doesn't sound like
I do that anyway.
But
so, no, it is not bad. One of the, if you want to talk about little wrinkles as time goes on, I mean, one thing that, we did have, heat flow and all of that, and that was really well documented, and we went through, but, we're in the city electrician had to come in, and just everything takes time, right? And so, we're in this rush. Okay, check this box type of mode. That was one thing that, in terms of like those curveballs that got thrown our way is, they come in here and, okay, well, it's a 10-foot ceiling, requires this level of venting. And so there is just a level of detail and those things that pop up as you go on. But no, I think the noise level is it's really never been a distraction. And, the racks are over our shoulder. It's warm in here, but, you deal with it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I wish we could talk to you guys longer. We're running a little tight on time, but I guess just lastly, before we go, real quick, any advice that you might give, having gone through this experience before? I know it's unique. Kevin, I know when we talked about earlier in the year when we did a little story on this on the site, it's like, I would have really liked to go and visit other control rooms, but didn't have the chance to do that because nobody's campuses were open. But is there any kind of advice that you would give to someone who's maybe at where you were March of 2020, getting started on this project?
For me, I would say try to lean on the expertise of your integrator if you can get one. There were things that I didn't even know Sienna NDI Cloud existed. And they said, we use this for the Eagles. We're going to put you in touch with them, see how they like it. And it just kind of, you need to have that network of, you have a problem that you might think is impossible, but they've seen it 10 times at other schools and 10 different varieties. So I would say just, work with your integrator instead of just saying, here's what I want, this is how I want it, get creative.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that to say again, if you really are comfortable and conversant in, each individual piece of technology, that's awesome. I am not, and I suspect that there are some people like me that just kind of I know what I want it to eventually do, and I know what I want it to look like. But those meetings when you're with your integrator and you're with IT or you're with university facilities, they can devolve into a lot of acronyms real quick. And so my advice, because then I would have to, we get out of a meeting and I'd say, okay, now tell me what that was all about. And like now that we got to the end of the process, I could say, okay, if I had just thought to ask, this, and this, don't be afraid to look a little bit dumb, say, hey, what is this that we're talking about? What is it actually going to do? What is it going to cost? How is it going to tie together with X, Y, and Z? So, just don't be afraid to slow those conversations down, ask exactly the questions you need. But as Kevin said, lean on the people that do this day in and day out. And I think, we really turned them loose and we got to a great place. We're thrilled.
Certainly can appreciate that and really appreciate your time, gentlemen. Thanks so much for doing this. Thanks for putting the video together. Thanks for the tour of the facility. Congratulations on it. It looks great. And we wish you the best in what will hopefully be a full and normal year next year. So good luck with it.
Likewise, everyone come to Philly and visit now that we can all get back out on the road. Anyone that wants to come check it out, we'd be happy to have you.
Yep.
We really, really appreciate that. All right, guys, thanks so much.